Okay, chapter 5. This is developing a mission, vision, and goals and objectives for the project. And I want to leave this chapter with people having a good grasp of what these different terms mean and how they fit together. Some of this is rather straightforward, but it won't hurt to go over it, I think. It also gives you some ideas on how you can explain the problem-solving process to others. But it's basically the problem defined. You know where you are and define where you want to be, and then there's obstacles in between. Now, the difference between goal and problem statement. The goal is not a problem in itself. It's the fact that there are obstacles to achieve the goal, and that's where you define the problems that need to be solved. And some of the work that we do with companies is related very much to this. In our case, for 254, project definition is often aligned closely with the problem statement that we use. Okay, now let's look at these various terms. The vision. This is the big view of this, what the result will look like. A very high level view often. And I have some examples I picked out to put in here. Okay, so think of this as a kickback, and how do you envision this working, so to speak? Or how do you envision the technology that you're bringing to the table? Not you necessarily. How does the people you're working with envision the technology you're bringing to the table, assisting in the productivity improvements or the higher service levels, whatever the metrics are of the business you're applying it to? Their broad view. The mission of the project is to achieve the vision. The mission is to achieve the vision, the mission statement. So it's one step down, so to speak. And it's what are we going to do and for whom are we going to do it? When you're getting to your mission statement, you need to make sure that it covers those things. Okay. Now, this is the one, I put this in, I thought, well, this is not put in to be self-serving, but I didn't blot my picture up, but this is in the second floor, the Enterprise Systems Center. So I'm trying to give a small flavor of an in-person experience here. So if you're in the building, in the second floor, this is what you'd see there. So that's as close as we're going to get to in-person for a while, I think. But what does this say? Do a double check here on the mission. This is our mission statement. In our research and educational efforts, we're committed to student experiential learning while simultaneously providing value for our clients. Now, if you were to ask the thing, what are we going to do and for whom are we going to do it? How does that supply that information? Anybody want to volunteer? I'm going to just pick a name off the screen, okay, if I do that here. Delton, you there?
Yes.
If you were to, you can pass on this. I'm not trying to bug people unnecessarily. But if you were to do a mental check on the mission statement, does that hit the criteria here? This, like, what are we going to do? For whom are we going to do it? Does that answer that? Yeah, you can grade. Here, put a grade on my mission statement. All right, did I hit the target?
I think so, yeah.
I didn't even think of it when I was writing this stuff out. I wasn't thinking of the definition. But what are we going to do, and who are we going to do it for? What would you? This is kind of a rhetorical question, but looking at that, what are we going to do for our students? You're still with you, Delton.
Committed to experiential learning.
Well, going to provide experiential learning for who?
To provide value for our clients.
Right. So we're going to do. I'm going to assume this is what you meant, and if it isn't, just go with it. Okay.
Right.
We're going to provide educational experiential learning. Our educational and experiential learning will be for our students, and we're doing value add work, measurable value add work for our clients. Right? Does that make sense? That's what you were saying, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And that hits these targets. So this is, make sure you do a mental, double check when you're writing the mission statements. because you could get called out on it if you miss that. University mission statement is there. And this is a little more, fills in a little bit more, like this is collaborate, extra points to make, collaboration with these agencies and places. And then collaboration with the department. And these are just some examples. This shows, if you can see here, believe it or not, in the back wall of the first floor lab, there used to be a storage and retrieval system. Boy, if there was ever 20/20 hindsight, that was put in from SI handling. It was all automated, would have been a great thing to do experiments with. But, at the time, they needed the room for some other things and pulled it out with all the, the different systems that the companies like Amazon are using. It would have been nice. I just saw that picture and thought of that. Here it is over here, down here in the lower right. This is all completely automated, all computer driven. And you could try different strategies and algorithms with it. We got it, basically. The company had it at a trade show. It was a subset. I mean, these are massive systems. There was a subset that they were demonstrating and said, what are you going to do with it? I knew the guy was the Lehigh alum that ran the company. They didn't know what to do with it, when they're done. So they had it shipped here. Anyhow, now vision statement. Here's Amazon. Now, be not broad. Be the Earth's most customer-centric company. This is pretty, I would say this is pretty darn broad. I don't know if you saw it before. And then same thing like LinkedIn. So vision statements have these characteristics. When you're running your own company and you're developing a vision statement, just kick back and think big. The personal vision statement, we try to do this similar to this in the 382 course, which some of you are taking. But I put this in, this is an example. This is the company that does this. There's many companies. I never work with these folks. I don't know them, but I just grabbed it. But this is an example, and I'll put this up on course site. It doesn't hurt you at all. That's sort of a negative way to say that. It's helpful often to think about this, especially as you transition in your career, like from university to first job and so forth. To think back, I wish people had pointed this out to me a little more than they did. I think I kind of lucked out, but I don't want to leave it up to luck. I'm going to try to point it out to you as a good thing that you might want to think about doing, or make a conscious effort. So you don't have to think backwards, like, why didn't I, kind of thing. This company, if you're interested in this, has some interesting, I was just looking before the class today, I was looking for examples, and they have interesting little models, but this is, the stress cycle is what people sometimes get caught up in. I see this happening to folks. There's not much I can do about it, but characterize stress cycle, and then they call a balance cycle. And when you're in a high stress project work, you may want to reflect on what the teachings of this company are to keep your life, a little bit in balance. But those I put that out. This is a little side journey. It's not in the chapter of the book, but I put it in. Okay, now, so we talked about the goals, the vision, the mission statement. Now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. From the mission statement, now this is a hierarchy that you need to think of consciously. Mission statement, then comes the objectives. This is defined as its desired result. And third in the list, mission, objective, and then a series of tasks. Okay, and the task is more specific. It's more measurable. Actually, it's usually shorter duration. And that's the structure that underlies a lot of project work. Okay. Ways to think about objectives vary. This is a rather straightforward one. And this can serve, this is in a sense an informal checklist you can use. If your objectives don't meet these criteria, and you say, well, that's pretty obvious. Well, I see people generating objectives that don't meet all of these. Sometimes they don't meet more than one of the criteria. It's going to be tougher for you. So before you launch, into working on the objectives and decomposing it into tasks, you might use this checklist. Or people that work for you, if they're having trouble getting their thoughts together and defining the objectives of the project. So you're managing a group of people, some of which are creating the objectives for the project. You can remind them of the importance of these factors. So this for you and for others. Now, the solid objective, you need to cover what's your desired outcome. The focus is on, and I've talked about this really starting from day one, focusing on, now this may sound a little, I don't know, blunt, but the focus on the results and deliverables. If you can't determine these crisply and you can't get agreement with your client, it's just, you're going to probably have some difficulties going forward. And then how do we know we got it? Well, what's the exit criteria? How do you do the baton pass? A lot of folks are going to be working in modes where they are going to move to another business, not switch jobs, but in consulting, move to another business after, say, a system's installed. So what does it take for things to be at an operational level with the client company executing on their own to exit? So that's like a way to think about that, probably. Deliverables and exit criteria for the objectives. Now, we're going to move now, project risk area. With risk analysis, you ask what could go wrong. And the basic idea is that these answers may help avert some of the risks and understand them. You think, this could sound to some people like a little negative. Like, what could go wrong? But wearing rose-colored glasses in project work and assuming everything is going to go perfectly, when it probably won't, it's not the best way. Most people would agree with that. So you're just basically pulsing into the system, saying what could go wrong. We want to be prepared. So now, direct time allocation so that the focus is on the more likely to occur risks, which could, and those that have the largest economic or critical path impact. When you step back, and if I step back and say when I look at a project, and I do this frankly frequently and talk this over with the project managers and consultants, it is likely to occur, and with the economic hit we could take or the critical path impact, because the network, the task, the objective and task network, some non-critical path areas are not as worthy of intensive risk analysis as those where any delay on the critical path, the risk there delays the whole project. So that's that. Now, when you're looking at risks, or say risks of failure as the author talks about it, you want to look at it with respect to these areas: the schedule, the budget, work product quality, and customer satisfaction. Now, as you think through the project you've done or one that you're starting on here, you're looking at problems that could happen with how it's scheduled out. Let's take, the student housing that's across the street from Moeller Lab, the South Side Commons. Does anybody live there in that building? Then it's student housing right on the corner. Let's take a look. I watched that building go up. We were in person at that time. In that construction project, what are some risks with the schedule? I'm going to give you a clue here. It was built during the wintertime part of it.
Snow.
Snow, ice, weather
Yeah.
can really hit your scheduling, right, on the construction. What could happen with the budget?
You could run out of money.
Because of, say, unanticipated cost increases.
Mm-hmm.
If you reported back, if the project manager reported back to the New York financer people that were financing that thing, well, sorry, I ran out of money. I think they'd want him to be a little more specific. And what risks, what are the risks that you could have encountered, should have planned for with this? But like there's a risk of increase in the cost of certain commodities, certain items, and you can try to mitigate that risk also by building in contingencies, and we'll look at that. And the work product quality could be from, you would take a shot at this. This is a tougher one to say. What would be a risk of work product quality? Well, I said it, building construction is done with a lot of subcontractors. And ones that are less proven, there may be a higher risk of performance problems. There's name brand subcontractors, and there's some that are, put together by, less formal ways. And the customer satisfaction is a risk that by not keeping the customer properly involved as a stakeholder, there was some surprise, pushbacks before sign off at the end.